Hey guys, welcome back to the Resilience Pod. You're here with me, your host, Reena Singh. Thank you for tuning in today. I am truly grateful. Today's episode is all about work area recovery sites. They have been part of many BC options in planning and still are. With the pandemic still restricting our movements to the home, are organizations utilizing their backup sites? Can they even do this amidst the COVID-19 safely? With also the newfound way of working from home, what will be the future of work area recovery post-pandemic? Well, guys, today we are talking about this exact thing with my next guest on the pod, who joins us with an array of experiences in risk, information security, compliance, and continuity. He has successfully built and led businesses for 25 years. So, guys, please join me in welcoming the winner of CIR's Business Continuity Specialist Company of the Year 2019, founder and CEO of London's first independent work area recovery centre called Fortress Availability Services Ltd, Andrew Lawton. Hi Andrew, how are you?
Great, thanks, Rena. That was quite a build-up. I appreciate that. I'm good, thanks.
Good. So welcome to the pod. It's great to have you on here. And we're really excited because we're talking about something that's very, very relevant to you and your business.
Sure.
And before we kind of get into the details about it, for anyone who's new listening to us, what is a work area recovery site?
It's very straightforward, really. If your site is unavailable for whatever reason, fire, flood, cyber attack, then we can provide an alternative site, and it's basically very much like an insurance policy that you put in place, and you pay an annual subscription to be able to pick up the phone and say, we're having a disaster, we need to get 20 people up and running in the next 2 hours, or whatever the time frame you need is. And we've got an office, desk chairs, PCs, all the infrastructure, very large bandwidth, technicians ready and waiting to support our customers. And they're ready and available to, as I say, to recover businesses extremely quickly.
Fantastic. So that's great. Now, in a normal situation, when businesses have an incident, having one of these backup sites, war sites, or insurance, which I like how you've called it that, is really a lifesaver. But we're in this pandemic still. And as an owner of a work area recovery site for Fortress, what has been the greatest impact of all of this for you and your business?
Well, obviously, great question. It's an interesting time for us as a business. I think the past few weeks have proven quite clearly that many, if not most, can work from home. So there's a question mark over the need for a work area recovery centres. And actually, the feedback we're getting, of course, this is something that we're monitoring all the time. The feedback we're getting varies from those that say, right, we're never going to go back to the office, even in operational time, so we clearly don't need work area recovery, to other customers who are saying that they actually need more dedicated workspace with us. Because what we've provided, they've had dedicated agreements with us in the past, and actually they found that in pandemic they needed more, and so they're increasing their work area recovery. I think actually,
Okay.
in the end, it's going to fall somewhere in the middle. People have worked from home quite clearly, but I think it's also clear that to get in, to be working from home full time, and all people working from home full time, doesn't actually suit many people, because they either don't have the personality for it, or they don't have facilities for it at home, or their family life doesn't allow them to work from home very well, or also they're in a team and they need to be working together to be creative, and to make fast decisions, and trading floors are a good example of that. And so yes, there will always, I think, still be a need for an office, but I think the office will change going forward. Um, and funnily enough, it sort of changes to what we've been saying for the past 2 years. We did quite a bit of research, obviously, before starting Fortress, and
Hmm.
that research led us to build a smaller recovery centre, much smaller than others, but a much higher quality recovery centre. So our recovery centre is actually a really nice place to be. And many
Mm.
people who work there in a recovery situation have said actually they don't really want to go back to their main office because they much prefer working at our recovery centre, which is unusual. Um,
Mm.
and actually, that smaller recovery centre that provides a more flexible environment, I think, is actually the way things seem to be going. So there is
Mm.
going to be this need for a focus for staff, focus for customers, and for business partners, and of course for regulators where people are regulated. And having a small recovery centre that provides the crisis management team and core functions, guaranteed infrastructure, and guaranteed space,
Hmm.
secure space to do their business, and to deal with the data that they do on a day-to-day basis, I think is still going to be required. It will be, as I say, a slight change over what's happened in the past.
Mm. Yeah, so still very prevalent in a normal situation. But
Sure.
whilst we're in this pandemic, and as you say, we're quite restricted, as I alluded to earlier, and we all most of us are. Um, have I mean, people are going to want to know this, but has any organization actually been using the recovery site for anything?
Sure. We actually have two companies in currently using the facilities. Really, they're using
Okay.
it to help by reducing the density of their staff. So some staff
Okay.
have basically told their companies that they do not have the facilities to do trading at home. They don't have the
Mm.
facilities to do their work at home, or they don't want to work at home. It's not the right environment, and they're using the facilities in effect as an extension of their office. So
Okay.
it's not quite in the same way as a recovery centre, and not on the same term. So it's not customers invoking our business,
Yeah.
because and it's an industry standard thing. To be able to invoke a service, you need to basically be excluded from your office. So if you have a fire or
Mm.
flood or whatever it is that means that you don't no longer have access to the facilities, then you can invoke. Now, of course, a pandemic is a little bit different to that. It means that you
Mm.
can go back into your office, but you're choosing not to, and it's a real grey area. And we had lots of debates, um, but industry wide, it's clear that people aren't able to invoke their standard services, their historic services, um,
Yeah.
based on pandemic. However, they can use our facilities because they are
Hmm.
secure. They are designed, of course, to meet the requirements of these businesses. Um, but of course, if somebody has a real invocation, then they unfortunately need to leave. But having said that, of course, they are in there and they're working.
Oh, okay. Really interesting to know that, because actually I was expecting you to say no, actually no one's come in. So
Sure.
having a few organizations in there using it a little bit differently, like you said, is really interesting. And with bearing that in mind, how have you as a business then catered towards the whole social distancing and making sure it's a safe place? Because it's not going to be the same way everyone's working, because staff will be having those concerns and issues. So, what have you done that's different to a normal invocation and recovery?
Hmm. Again, as you say, this is something that we do need to bear in mind, and
Mm.
our suites of what were 20 positions are now being used by 4 people. So it's a
Okay.
much lower density, and the whole
Mm.
site is now set up for to manage social distancing. We
Hmm.
have deep cleans on a regular basis. We have areas, public areas, disinfected. So we have had to adapt.
Yeah.
And finally, we're having conversations now about further use of the site
Hmm.
as companies start to plan for their return to their office.
Hmm.
As we, once lockdown's over and people start returning to work, we will, as every company, will need to look at reducing the density in the short term. I'm not quite sure how short that
Hmm.
short term is, but
Yeah.
maybe even running up to the end of the year, the density of the offices will need to be reduced. And companies are talking to us about using our facilities to extend their office footprint, if you like, so that they
Mm.
can provide facilities to their companies in that sort of densified work environment.
Wow, that's absolutely fabulous and a great innovative idea, I guess. Whereas maybe potentially you wouldn't have thought about using your space for that kind of thing in a normal pre-pandemic world.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's something that we were very keen to do when and we do provide this for our
Okay.
customers. Could use it for training, so they use it for training facilities, for
Hmm.
board meetings.
Mm.
If they have the auditors in or something like that, project teams. So the site has been used in a similar way before. And it gives our customers, greater flexibility, and in fact, anyone that wants to use this as a secure office with
Mm.
high level of infrastructure and technical support. So it's very different from a standard flexible office. It's
Yeah.
designed for much more secure levels of, both digitally and physically secure. Obviously,
Mm.
the technology on the desks is very high level, and
Mm.
we have the communications infrastructure as well.
So that's yeah, it's a what we would hope from a work area recovery site and that much more because guys, I've seen this, so it's pretty impressive. But moving aside from that, then Andrew, um, whilst it's really great to hear that some organizations are using the site. When this pandemic first hit, kind of what was your initial reaction as being that business owner? The concerns and the problems you were facing initially. I'd be really keen
Well,
to explore that.
I think probably the biggest area we have obviously dedicated work area recovery as well as the syndicated shared services, and the dedicated was very
Mm-hmm.
straightforward. It's our customers'
Mm.
space in effect, and they can do what they want with it. And of course,
Mm.
using it to provide split working for their companies was something that immediately came to mind as the pandemic started to hit.
Mm.
We had that. One of the biggest questions and the most complicated questions was that one about whether standard shared work area recovery customers could invoke their service if because of a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And we thought long and hard. We had lots of internal discussions, obviously at board meetings as well. We
Mm.
consulted with the rest of the industry as well to understand, what is the industry standard, um, and what came out of it was that, of course, we put in place terms and conditions. We need to adhere to those, of course, in delivering the service. And those terms and conditions and the commercials that go around those terms and conditions and delivering that service, and most
Mm.
importantly, the risk management part of delivering that service wouldn't work if we allowed people to invoke for reasons of a pandemic. So if you think about
Mm.
a standard service, we have exclusion zones around our customers, so we don't offer
Okay.
the same recovery suite to two customers that are within 250 meters of each other, so that
Right.
it reduces the risk of two companies invoking at the same time. We
Mm.
also have a relatively low number of risks on each of our suite, and of course we manage risk very, very carefully.
Yeah.
That's easier to do when you're talking specifically about the facilities. It's
Mm.
possible to do really when you're thinking about pandemic. So a shared service that delivers office during the pandemic actually wouldn't work because literally as soon as the pandemic hit, everybody would invoke. There'd be no limitation on geography. uh, so the site would be swamped in no time at all, and it wouldn't, in effect, be effective as a
Mm.
recovery provision. So sorry for the long answer there, a bit technical from a service delivery perspective, but those are
Yeah.
the most complex areas of our approach to pandemic. Aside from,
Yeah.
of course, we continue to be ready and available. Our site it has and continues to be available for our customers should they need to invoke for other reasons.
Okay, that's fabulous. Have you seen through this pandemic cancellations, organizations canceling their contracts, or just the requirements? Because everyone's working from home now. It's the new thing.
Mm.
What's been your experience so far? It's only been about 5 weeks, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Really. So,
it, I,
yeah.
it's a very good question, and I'm absolutely certain that every company that has a work area recovery service agreement will be reappraising their requirements following the
Mm,
pandemic. Um, we've certainly not had any customers cancel, or in fact give
mm,
us any indication that they want to do that. We've had
mm.
completely different conversations at the other end about maybe taking more space or doing other things.
Okay.
But of course, it's something that we're looking at. But if you
Yeah.
think about what we've been doing, and of course you've been to our recovery centre, because we're doing
Mm-hmm.
something slightly different anyway, and we always
Mm.
have been. The process of reviewing is actually good for us because it means that people will sort of determine whether they want work area recovery or not. And if they do, then of course they're going to look at their options. And um, uh, because we sort of came into this with a blank sheet of paper. The recovery
Yeah.
centre is built and delivers a very different service to the more traditional work area recovery services.
Mm. Okay, so that's a positive sign out of all of this, because generally there's that worry, isn't there, that businesses are trying to stay afloat, and then this might be seen as a luxury nice to have, which you can see why people might think that, and businesses might think that, let's cut out that insurance, but
Exactly.
because as you say, but still very very prevalent, I guess, because we this pandemic is not going to be forever, and there's going to be other incidences.
Yeah, I think the question is, do you need work area recovery? Yes or no?
Mm,
And
okay.
although everyone can work from home, it is clear. You only have to look on social media and look at the memes about going mad in lockdown and desperately trying to get out. People like to get into the office. Now, of course, they also like to work
Yeah.
from home, and there will
Yeah.
be a balance between the two.
Yeah.
People, you only have to think about Google, one of the world's biggest, in fact, one of the most valuable companies in the world that's built its business on lots
Yeah.
of things. One of them being delivering remote collaboration tools. So it's a remote
Hmm.
collaboration tools provider, and yet it spent 3 billion on office space. In fact, just the land for its office in California
Mm.
over the past 3 years. Now, why on earth would a company with that level of technical capability that actually delivers remote collaboration tools build such an elaborate office and famously offer their staff haircuts, and they can bring their dogs in and get their oil changed and massages, and they can sleep in the office, etc., 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 free food?
Yeah.
Why on earth would they do that if they felt that there was no need? Well, of course, I
Mm.
think we all know that there is a significant benefit in getting people physically together. They do tend to be more creative, and they do tend to make better and faster decisions. It doesn't mean that we always work together, but it means
Hmm.
that at specific times, critical times, and particularly, maybe at times of disaster and crisis, we do need to have at least a small core physically together. Maybe the crisis management team and core business functions, and that's what we believe. A
Yeah.
small core of 20 or 40 people, get them together so that they're the focus of the company and they're delivering at absolutely the highest possible level of performance.
Mm.
So there is, and there always will be, I think, a need for office space.
Yeah.
Um, as borne out by Google and Bank of America and Yahoo and various others, IBM as well, who are all
Yeah.
actually moving away from working from home. They've been working from home for 10 or 15 years, and they're actually moving away from it. So there is
Mm.
a good reason behind that, but that doesn't mean that
Yeah.
there won't be this flexible middle ground um, for the main part.
Yeah, indeed. And I think it all depends on the type of business you're in too. And absolutely, you need that. We all crave that human interaction, don't we?
Yeah.
And I think we won't take it for granted once this is passed. This
No,
has passed.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
It's a funny one. I mean, I'm
mm,
sure you've probably had social gatherings on Zoom, Zoom beers,
yes.
and I have too, and with some
Mm,
great friends, and it's good to catch up and see their faces and have
yeah.
join them for a drink. But it's very very clear that it's not the same as being in a
Yes.
pub or at a party or whatever. It just isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a good reason for that. We interact very differently, and the technology itself is not designed really for that social interaction. And that piece of more closer collaboration and relationship building is missed if everyone's
Mm-hmm.
working from home full time. So, as I say, I think there will be that middle ground. The value of getting people physically together will still be there. It may change,
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm,
it's still valuable, very definitely.
yeah.
And as I say, we believe that getting that core together at a time of crisis is actually a really good idea.
Absolutely. And we still, and I personally believe, just from hearing from you today and just generally before, that there is that it's not the end of work area recovery sites. This is not going to be the end of it. It's going to spark a more interest in it probably going forward.
Yes, I think certainly in resilience, absolutely, and an analysis
Yeah.
of what happened, how could people improve their processes, and the provision behind
Yeah.
that. Now, what we're doing, of course, is as a result of the pandemic and our experiences and what our customers are telling us, is we're
Mm,
developing new services around
mm,
our facilities, but also around delivering facilities for week one and week two, where it's clear. I think
mm,
customers will be happy to send all of their staff
mhm.
home, perhaps during week one. They will also realise, as a result of the pandemic, that week two and week three, etc., and further, they do need to have something,
Yeah.
and that's where we're looking at what we can do there. We're looking at making our facilities more flexible to be used on a daily basis
Mm,
rather than on a just a disaster basis,
okay.
just to make them a better return on investment, to help with those companies that just want space for a number of hours but want secure
Mm,
space with sort of a high level of technical support. There are lots of different circumstances where our provision and some new services that we're probably not going to mention right now, but we'll be announcing in a month or two once we've tested the delivery
mhm.
of them, that will cater for much more flexible or deliver much more flexible work area recovery for, as I say, that sort of crisis management team and those core functions um,
Mm.
for that second week maybe or beyond.
Yes. Stay tuned. I mean, it sounds great. Now is the time to really be thinking about that. As a business, it sounds like you shouldn't just sit there and wait. You need to think about ways to innovate and provide new services on the back of what you've already got. And it sounds like you are doing that, which is really great to
Sure.
hear.
Yeah.
On that now, though, however, we've talked about the benefits and the challenges that you've faced and that people are still using the work area recovery sites. You've innovated in providing different approaches. After this, though, when all this is over, eventually there will be some organizations and resilience as resilience professionals, if you're responsible for dealing or helping your business deal with additional backup sites, wall sites, you are going to get that question. Well, we all work from home. We don't really need it. What would you say as a business owner who can clearly see the benefits from both sides, as a client and as an owner? What would you tips would you give to our fellow resilience professionals to keep that conversation alive, especially if they've got existing work area recovery sites already?
Well, I think uh, look to get a greater return on investment from work area
Mhm.
recovery. Don't
Okay.
always think of it. I know I'm the worst culprit, obviously, because I called it an insurance policy at the start there, trying to explain what it
Yeah.
was. But actually, it's much more than that. And
Mhm.
the facility is one that you can use, as I said before, for if the auditors need to come in, if you want to deliver training for your customers, if you want to run a board meeting
Yeah.
off site, or you have a project team that needs some extra space, or in this instance, you need that extra swing space, extra office space to just push teams into to reduce the density of your office. So there are
Mm.
many ways that you can use work area recovery, and I think maybe work with the facilities teams and the operations leaders to work out what the business needs from a day-to-day
Mm.
basis. And
Okay.
certainly we will be very flexible in enabling our customers to utilize the facility on a day-to-day basis or an ad hoc basis that suits them, that gives them a greater return on investment. I think that's one of the key
Mm.
areas. So it's not just money down the drain, inverted commas, into an insurance
Yeah.
policy that we may never use.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you only have to look at the stats, you more than likely will use it. But for those, yeah, for those challenging conversations, I think it's important
Yeah.
to broaden the use of the facility so you get a much greater return on investment. And we're very happy to work with customers to help build that business case, if you like, and ensure that
Yeah.
they're getting that value.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's all very prevalent, and as you alluded to earlier on in our conversation, we need to work together. It's not the same being virtual, and so you can only get so far. So it's still very prevalent. The conclusion of this is that we will still need work area recovery sites post pandemic,
Well,
probably even more so.
well, absolutely, and we're actually talking to companies that are saying, what we are going to do without space, office space at all. So we're not going to have any
Mm.
office space. But by the way, we do want to come into the office for 1 day a week, and we
Mm.
need that space to be secure. It needs to have a level of infrastructure. It needs
Yeah.
to be in a nice place. And so
Hmm.
we're talking to those companies about
Yeah.
that very small period of time where they need secure office. Um, and as I say, talking to other companies about reducing the density of their staff by having a smaller main office, but flexing
Hmm.
staff in and out of the recovery centre. So it actually helps the company save money
Mm.
and provides them with a much more flexible footprint for their staff.
Yeah. Definitely. It's all very interesting, and there's going to be many new nuances once this is all over in terms of what businesses demand from their work area recovery
Sure.
providers. So, thank you for giving us a bit of your insights into this, because it's different getting an opinion from you as someone who runs this and talks to customers and their requirements. It's been really interesting.
Yeah, thanks. Well, what I would say is, if any of your listeners have got great ideas about services that we should be offering, or maybe adaptations of our existing services that you think we should be doing, then please do get in touch, and we're absolutely considering how we need to be flexible in the future. We've always been
Mhm.
flexible, and we're very keen to listen to customers and develop services that are relevant.
Yeah. Oh, well, fantastic. Guys, you've got an open invitation now to get in touch with Andrew with some ideas, or just completely say, no, that doesn't work. We want this.
Yeah.
Do engage if you're really curious about this. Obviously, we've only been talking for 29 minutes, 30 minutes, but Andrew has given us you and us the open door. So, Andrew, based on that, where can our listeners find you
Well, they can,
and contact you?
sure. Well, they can find me on LinkedIn, of course,
Hmm.
and obviously Andrew Lawton at FortressAS, or if they click on the website, they've got contact details there. My email address, you can just drop me an email, is andrew.lawton@fortressas.com.
Fabulous. Many, many thanks, Andrew. It's guys, you've got all these ways to contact Andrew, and you can go on to the resiliencepod.com site and find him there, and some old interviews of Andrew too, because
Sure.
back probably in 2016 we did a blog post together. So
Yeah,
if people want to find about more about you, there's that in there too. So I don't know if you remember that, Andrew.
absolutely. Yeah, that was right at the start of things. So, yeah.
Yeah, a long time ago. Feels like an age ago. But yeah, thank you again, Andrew, for sharing your insights with us today. Thank you very much. And guys, thank you to all of you who have tuned in today. We can safely say that the future of work area recovery is still on. So get the conversations going in your organizations post this. Until next time, do stay tuned. We've got many more episodes coming. Don't forget to like and share this episode. Contact us about your thoughts and subscribe via the resiliencepod.com website. Guys, it's all from me for now, your host, Reena Singh. Until next time, keep on investing in your resilience.